There's an image of a guy, an Iraqi guy. He's being held by the jaw, and he's got a pistol to his head with a flashlight in his eyes. And CNO is like, what is going on in this picture thing?
What about the pressure? I mean, I've always thought about, I always felt a lot of pressure just going out the door, do the right thing, but I mean, what is the pressure like? And you don't really have any other reference because you hadn't gone on any kinetic operations until this point. But I mean, what is the pressure like as an officer leading 16, 20 guys into battle at the beginning of a war where there's not a lot of lessons learned? Yeah. There's not a lot of new tactics developed yet.
Yeah. The pressure I felt was just wanting to do a good job, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to, I wouldn't say not make any mistakes, because I was not a risk averse person. Like I recognize that if you roll out on an operation, things can go wrong. And I understood that. And I understood that risk. So, but yeah, you worried about guys getting wounded. You're worried about guys getting killed. A little bit of a very distant idea to me, guys getting wounded or killed. It could happen, I thought, but it was, man, this is early in the war. The IED threat was relatively small. We would drive very aggressively at night on nods. We got ambushed a few times, but it would no factor. RPGs going over the, lucky RPGs going over the convoy, machine gun fire going between vehicles. Like we got lucky. God's a frogman. But it was still a little bit distant to me that someone could get wounded or killed. It was there, but not. We really dominated the battle space. Like coalition forces dominated the battle space. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't have that much of that kind of pressure in my head.
What about the pressure of winning your men over, winning their trust, winning? Yeah, I mean, you want to be the fucking leader that everybody wants to follow into battle. That stuff I would imagine has to be going through your head. Am I making the right calls? How do my men? I mean, we talked about perception earlier, and that conversation I want to bring up, more towards the end. But I mean, are you worried about the guy's perception of how you're leading?
These guys are my bros, and these guys are my friends. And when I took over that platoon, we were maybe the first or second thing we did was a nighttime OTB in San Diego, pilot recovery training operation. So I had done 3 shipboard deployments, man. I know how to do over the beach. And we go over the beach, and one of our boats capsizes or the motor dies. I forget which. I think it's just the motor died. And we get the pilot and we come back, and now we got a down boat. And the guys when I took over the platoon, some of the guys were kind of friends with the old officer. And so there was a little bit of that. And some of the guys didn't like the old officer. And so there was a little bit of a friction, right? And so this boat's down. And the guy's like, we're in a perimeter. And the guy's like, dude, we got to call admin. We got to call the trucks down here and get this boat towed back. And I was like, we're not doing that. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? And I go, this is what we're doing. And I gave them the plan. And I put on my fins and took the boat. And I was like, hey guys, you guys are going to paddle this boat. They're looking at me like I'm crazy, like paddling a boat through the surf. Like this is buds. And I said, and as soon as we get deep enough, we'll set up a tow line. And we did have a good long tow line. And I remember I beanered my weapon into the boat, and I got in the water, and I'm keeping the bow into the wave so we don't flip over. And then we get the other boat comes in, I get those lines secured, and then they start towing us out, and then the guys drag me back into the boat. But one of the guys in that platoon was like, after you did that night, we would do anything for you. Because they had kind of said oh, we got to call admin. And I was like, no, we're not calling admin. We're going to make this happen. But there was all kinds of stuff like that. You step up and do the right thing. And Yeah, these guys are my friends. You know why these guys listen to me? Because I listen to them. You know why these guys treated me with respect? Because I treated them with respect. You know why they trusted me? Because I trusted them. And when that's what you do, that's how it is. And that was the attitude that I had. I wasn't really concerned about that. These guys were my guys, and I trusted them. They trusted me.
And you didn't know any of them prior to you coming into that platoon?
I knew the platoon chief.
You
The platoon chief was another, Team 1 E5 Mafia guy from back in the day. So it was great. It was great to have that instant connection. But I don't believe I knew one single other person in that platoon because I'd been out on the East Coast and then I'd been in college. So I don't think I knew once. The sister platoon, my sister platoon, my old running mate, the guy that told me, hey, you're not the only one that lost Grizz. He was the LPO in my sister platoon.
No shit.
And I got to do some ops with him.
Nice.
Yeah, which was as good as it gets.
Nice. What would you say your most memorable experience of that deployment is?
There was a few things that happened where you like there was the CPA in Najaf was being overrun. And they needed QRF. Najaf is 5 hours away by Humvee. And they needed QRF. And they called us. And I'm like, hey, there's like 3 other units between us and Najaf. Like, why? And they're like, I don't know, but you guys are going. And I remember the SEA of that troop, who, like I said, was the guy that was like, hey, go on this mission, which was kind of for no reason. He's a great friend of mine to this day. But I came out of like the talk and I was like, hey guys, load up all the rockets, load up all the ammunition you can fit in the trucks. This is what's happening. We're going to QRF, we're going into JOF. CPA's been overrun. And 20 minutes later, we're jocked up and that guy hugged me. And I was like, this is interesting. And because he usually went with us, but he wasn't going with us until he like hugged me. And I was like, interesting. Long story, no big deal. We got to Najaf. They didn't need a QRF. I want to say Blackwater actually came in with their helo.
Is that what that? I was wondering if that's what that was.
It was. So we went down there. We spent the night, didn't do anything, and then drove back. But I remember thinking, that's interesting. I'm getting this hug from my bro. We ended up doing towards the end of the deployment. There was one of Sadr's, Muqtada Sadr was the leader of the Shiites in Iraq, and coalition forces had been targeting him for months. Our whole deployment, he was being targeted, but they didn't want to hit him because they didn't know what the reaction would be. And so just before we were going home, we got tasked with hitting one of his top lieutenants. And it was a big operation, a lot of visibility on it. And we went down, and that was also, I want to say that was in Najaf. Yeah, that was in Najaf. We went down, we captured this guy. And when we came back, it was kind of, once it got out, it was kind of the beginning or one of the triggering points of the true insurgency in Iraq. Like I woke up that morning and there was like, you could look out from our base and you could see like fires from the highways, vehicles were being ID'd and stuff. And it was the beginning of the real formation of the insurgency, which I wasn't really quite 100% sure on, but you could see something was changed. Something just changed and you could feel it.
No
and
shit.
I don't think America was ready for that. We weren't, we'd already made all kinds of mistakes, standing down the Ba'ath soldiers and the army, sounding down the Iraqi army, we made all kinds of mistakes out of arrogance as a country. But I don't think that we saw like, oh, damn, this is about to get really, really bad. And that was in the spring of 2004. And that is truly when things started to spiral.
Yep. Well, Jocko, I know it's getting ready to get heavy with Task Unit Bruiser. This is where you go to SEAL Team 3, take Task Unit Bruiser as the Task Unit Commander, correct?
Not quite.
Not quite.
Because as I'm finishing my deployment with SEAL Team 7, my commanding officer, again, who is my ops officer in Unit 2, my executive officer at SEAL Team 2, now he's my commanding officer. And he says, the last thing I do as a commanding officer is I'm going to make sure that you become the Admiral's aide. No one wants to be the Admiral's aide, of course, because, it's an administrative job. But there's a reason why he wanted me to go be the Admiral's aide. And it is because at that point in time, at that moment, I was going to come straight off the battlefield. This is 2003, 2004. There hadn't been that many platoons gone over there. I'm going to go straight off the battlefield and work directly for the Admiral. And that's what they want. They want somebody that has fresh combat experience that can tell him what is happening. And I did all kinds of excuses and tap dancing to try and get out of it, but it was happening. So, and it's part of it is it's outstanding professional development, because you're going to see things that you would not see without doing it. So that's what I get. I get home from deployment and I check in to be the Admiral's aide. And yeah, it was definitely a wake up call, because we had a thing was, if avoid wearing a uniform at all costs. If you have to wear it, make it perfect, right? That was kind of like a thing at SEAL Team 1. And I was really good at avoiding wearing a uniform. Like, I didn't even like to wear a shirt at work, as little as possible. And the first trip I went on with the Admiral, I think I had 4 uniforms with me. Like khakis for the Pentagon, camis for Fort Bragg, dress blues for a ceremony, and civilian clothes. That's like one trip.
Damn.
So I check in to be the Admiral, and it was definitely an eye opener of what's happening in the community and what's going on and what's happening at that level. And it was, a massive learning experience. And again, I had the E5 Mafia language down. Now I'd learned the officer language, and now it was learning, I don't know what to call the next level up of officer language, but it's like
Flag officer language.
Flag officer language. Because for that year, I was in the Pentagon. I was, and it's weird when you're an aide, it's kind of like you don't exist, but you do. And I don't mean that in a bad way. My boss was a great guy. He was, just a great guy, nice guy, cared about me a lot. But like when you're in a room with a 4-star general, like the aides are kind of these subhumans in the back, but you're listening to everything. You're seeing everything. And so it was a very educational experience as to what's happening at those levels. You're going to meetings at the Pentagon, JSOC, like just really educational.
A lot of inside baseball going on.
Yeah. And, for us in the SEAL teams, we don't realize often how much visibility we have, especially back then. Look, I guess now it's pretty obvious we have a lot of visibility. But back then, you wouldn't think that a E5 in a SEAL platoon doing something dumb on Liberty would get a phone call to the Admiral from the Vice CNO or the CNO or the SecNav. Like, these things are a big deal. And so that's what I learned. I learned the amount of scrutiny that we're under. The SEAL Team 5 guys, they had someone in that platoon uploaded digital pictures of their deployment to a website that was supposed to be secure that got breached. And so these pictures went out over the internet. And the pictures. So I'm there when the CNO is calling the admiral to ask him about each of these individual pictures. What is going on in these pictures? And implied in that was like, what is wrong with your troops? Example, there's an image of a guy, an Iraqi guy. He's being held by the jaw, and he's got a pistol to his head with a flashlight in his eyes. And the CNO's like, what is going on in this picture? And the admiral like hits the mute button. And I'm like, sir, they don't like to have their picture taken, so you got to face their picture to the camera. You got to face their face into the camera. And the light is so that you can illuminate the camera. You can illuminate the picture. That's why the closest flashlight you got is in his pistol. That's what he's doing. Boom. Admiral tells him what's going on.
Shit.
Next picture. A guy with a sandbag over his head, cuffed, blood coming out of the sandbag. What's going on with this picture? Hey, sir, that guy resisted. He got subdued. He probably could have been shot, but our troops are disciplined. And instead of shooting him, they captured him. They had to subdue him. They used minimum force required. And now they've got him handled. And now they take a picture of it. So like these little things where I realized that's the level of scrutiny we're under. And that's why, again, when I became a troop commander, being able to translate and explain to the guys what is going on and what the visibility is and how much it matters, what you do as an E4, as an E5 in a SEAL platoon, it has a strategic impact for the nation in some cases. And that was really clear with like Abu Ghraib, but also for the SEAL community. And if we are not professional, we don't get work. And that's not, I'm not saying that for the benefit of the SEAL teams. I'm saying that for the benefit of the country, because SEALs are good at what we do. And if we're not getting jobs that we should be getting because of these kind of ancillary actions, it's bad for the country. It's bad for our warfighting capabilities. So I learned a lot about that when I was the admiral's aide. And there was another couple huge cases. There was, I got to hear about what was happening from a legal perspective. Like there were some guys that shot someone. This wasn't SEALs. This was Army guys, regular Army guys, conventional Army guys, shot someone in south of Baghdad somewhere. And don't quote me on the story, but they had planted a gun on him. And they were going to jail. Like they were under trial for murder. And I just would hear that and go, what were these guys thinking? You know, why would they be doing this? And the immediate answer is, well, because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble, right? Oh, they're afraid that the ROE didn't allow them to shoot this guy and now they're trying to cover it up. The reality of this scenario is the ROE, if someone is, I'm trying to think of the exact terminology, reasonable certainty that they're committing hostile intent, not a hostile act, hostile intent. So if I think you're going to do something and I'm reasonably certain of that, I can shoot you, whether you have a gun or not. Mm-hmm. And yet we have guys, this particular case, these guys were getting in trouble because they planted a gun. They didn't need to do that. So that was like another, just learning about how much scrutiny the military. So like I initially saw like, oh, there's the SEAL teams is under scrutiny. But then I realized it's not just the SEAL teams. There's a lot of scrutiny on everything that we do. And the Abu Ghraib scandal, that caused so many people, that fueled the insurgency so much. And I saw that it fueled the insurgency. So what a couple, 18, 19, 20-year-old privates were doing in a prison fueled the insurgency. And the Al-Qaeda took advantage of it. They propagated those pictures. They propagated those pictures from Team 5. Like that's what happens. And so I guess I realized how the tactical actions of our units, SEAL teams, Marines, Army soldiers, has a strategic impact. And we have to think about what we're doing.
That is something I never thought of.